Imagine a world where battlefields are choked with the scent of iron and desperation, where ancient surgeons strike deals with nature to snatch life from the jaws of death. As arrows fly in Thrace or Gaul, wounded soldiers become reluctant guests of wartime medics wielding hooks, hot iron, and an arsenal of uncanny allies. Here in the shadow of war, mouldy bread becomes a life-saving poultice, turning festering wounds into healing stories with every spore. Maggots, once the invaders, become nature's meticulous janitors, devouring decay to leave fresh skin behind. Welcome to the arcane practices of ancient medicine, a dance with death that, shockingly, sometimes sways in favour of life. Imagine, if you will, stepping into the chaotic aftermath of an ancient battlefield where survival teeters precariously on the edge of both skill and sheer luck. Picture the wind-swept plains of Thrace or Gaul, where the cries of soldiers intermingle with the clashing of bronze and the groans of the wounded. Here begins our journey into a world where makeshift medical practices struggle valiantly against the looming spectre of death. In these devastated fields, the battlefield itself is a harsh and pitiless instructor, demanding innovation and adaptation against all odds. Without the modern marvels of medicine we rely on today, every injury was a potential death sentence. Yet, out of this chaos, the early battlefield surgeons emerged as unsung heroes, carving out a grim but vital role amidst the blood and mud. They practiced their trade in conditions few could imagine today, their stories whispered through the ages. With basic but effective tools in hand, these surgeons wielded brass and steel instruments, curved hooks for arrowheads, long tongs for gripping, rudimentary saws for amputation. These tools were not elegant, but they were born of necessity, bridging the gulf between life and death. In hastily erected tents, scarred and calloused hands moved with a steady precision, telling tales of their grisly expertise. They were battlefield engineers of a sort, building hope one limb at a time, under the most severe conditions imaginable. Pain, the constant spectre haunting battlefields, had to be managed creatively. Anesthetics as we know them were centuries away, and soldiers found what comfort they could in the numbing warmth of wine. In dire moments, a bracing gulp of vinegar might follow to chase away terror's chill. This harsh concoction was the only barrier against the relentless agony of surgical intervention. But beyond physical balms, there lingered whispered incantations, age-old words spoken by surgeons, offering an invisible salve and comforting rhythm against the surrounding chaos. Imagine setting up surgery amidst the clamour of battle. A tent flaps dully against dust-laden winds, struggling to contain the pervasive scent of death. Inside, bodies lie in a grim tableau of crimson-streaked flesh, waiting their turn under the relentless gaze of a surgeon desperately trying to hold back the tide. Every incision was a risk, each stitch a whispered hope that life might be better than its current bargaining offer. With fire-charred hooks and steam-cleaned knives, these surgeons operated on pure instinct and resilience. Drawing from the annals of history, Roman medics stand out as revolutionaries of battlefield care. Although rudimentary by today's standards, their practices were groundbreaking for their time. Known for discipline, the Romans documented their methods with care, particularly techniques for wound care and trauma management. The establishment of valetudinaria, or field hospitals, stands as testament to a pioneering spirit that shaped the practice of military medicine. Even those who embraced reason could not fully untangle themselves from the weight of superstition. Soldiers often wore talismanic amulets, or tucked herbs within their armour, believing these charms could repel evil spirits behind ailments. For warrior and healer alike, belief formed an unbroken chain, as vital as any sword, providing psychological solace amid the relentless turmoil of combat. Such rites, far from folly, wove a protective spell, bridging the abyss from despair to hope. When all other measures failed, the ancient art of cauterization took centre stage, wielded with fire's fierce finality. Using heated rods or boiling oil, these methods sealed wounds and pushed back the infection's grim advance. The smell of charring flesh and the haunting cries bore witness to this brutal yet necessary practice, underscoring the harrowing choice between a swift end or a fighting chance. Forged in the relentless crucible of war, the bonds between surgeon and soldier grew unbreakably strong. Surgeons became staunch advocates for their charges, balancing a heart's empathy with a warrior's unyielding resolve. This delicate dance between heart and skill transformed not just bodies but spirits, transforming pain into perseverance and binding lives on the battlefield. Across history's bloody pages, accident sometimes birthed innovation, reshaping medicine's very understanding. Those chaotic planes served as demanding instructors, where necessity became mother to invention, and every engagement a potential classroom. Lessons gleaned from such experiences lent wisdom to techniques adapted under duress, leaving echoes that still reverberate through time. As our journey through these ancient theatres of war concludes, we are left to reflect on the tremendous ingenuity and resilience of these early surgeons. Their legacy not only built the foundations of modern healing arts, but also immortalised the human spirit's enduring will to survive. These ancient pioneers whisper truths across the ages, their stories illuminating the indomitable capacity for innovation born of necessity and cherished through generations. The story of mouldy bread poultices begins in the dusty scrolls of ancient Egypt, where healers perform their art amidst the flickering light of oil lamps. It's around 1600 BCE, a time when medicine and superstition danced hand in hand, and ancient practitioners wielded nature's secrets with reverence and intuition. Among these secrets was the use of mouldy bread, the perfect alchemy of decay as a cure for decay. Applying mould-encrusted bread to wounds might sound like the musings of a madman today, but to the Egyptians it was both revolutionary and sensible. Nature, with its relentless cycle of life and death, seemed to offer remedies from its own abundance, especially when things went awry. Fast forward several centuries, and the Roman Empire stands as the superpower of the world, absorbing the wisdom of conquered lands like thirsty soil drinks rain. Among their adopted practices was this peculiar use of mouldy bread, integrated into their medical routines, much like the roads connecting their vast territories. Roman surgeons, clad in tunics and armed with simple tools, watched in amazement as bread covered in a greenish veneer did what they couldn't quite explain: help wounds heal. Despite a lack of understanding of bacteria, these medics relied on observation rather than theory, seeing success spread throughout their labs and military campaigns like quiet, unchecked ripples. In these moments of triumph and error, they unknowingly stood on the brink of modern science, without realising how thin the veil between ignorance and insight truly was. Unknown to all was the silent protagonist of this medicinal drama: the humble penicillium mould. Invisible to the naked eye, it acted without fanfare, producing antibiotic compounds long before Sir Alexander Fleming would stumble upon penicillin in 1849-1928. It's a tale of irony set in stone, as medieval practitioners, unaware of the microscopic battles occurring under their noses, continued to apply these moulds. The bread assumed almost totemic power, a testament to human ingenuity, working despite the rules of a science not yet written. The results were not always guaranteed, but when they manifested, they carried the weight of empirical truth over scientific uncertainty, woven into the fabric of their understanding. In cultures deeply intertwined with nature, the duality of decay posed both dread and potential. Medieval minds, fearing illness yet revering the balance of nature, saw in mould the paradox of good and evil, an embodiment of life's perpetual cycle. To apply mouldy bread to a wound was to dance with danger and embrace hope, observing proof in its after effects. A kind of silent prayer answered by the earth's quiet workings. Healers of the time, straddling the line between shaman and scientist, embraced this dichotomy, trusting their senses over unseen causes. Local variations in the recipe of mouldy bread treatments showcased human adaptability, dictated by terrain, customs, and available resources. The basic principle remained unchanged: rotted bread softened by fermented liquids. Yet with each cultural context came modifications. Herbs, honey, and regional grains contributed their part, accidentally promoting a richer diversity of penicillium strains. These adjustments were products of necessity and serendipity, demonstrating a form of innovation driven by tradition and a focus on practical results. Within communities, the healer's role transcended diagnosis. They were guardians of empirical wisdom passed through generations. In a world where divine intervention and the empirical merged, success in using mouldy bread fortifications lifted healers into a revered echelon, legitimizing their strange practices in the eyes of peasants and nobles alike. By necessity, they became storytellers, transmitting age-old truths orally, solidifying their knowledge through guilds and communal rituals that were largely immune to the capricious whims of time. Yet not without their limits, these practices faced challenges inherent to their times. The application of mouldy bread was far from foolproof. Victims of failed experiments became unwitting heroes of trial and error. A wrong bacterium, perhaps an unwelcome guest like ergot, could plague more than cure, underscoring the precarious balance of medieval medicine. Supplies were another matter, as getting the right mould took meticulous care amidst threats of contamination, and through it all, the successes confirmed their methods, embedding this knowledge into the very identity of the community. Left to the neglect of history for centuries, the rediscovery of antibiotics reignited an appreciation for these intuitive practices. Today, in the clinical sterility of modern hospitals, the idea of healing with mouldy bread feels like a relic, a whisper from the past rendered vivid through scientific triumph. The ancients' accidental foresight speaks volumes about the human spirit's relentless pursuit of understanding, regardless of era or method. Modern medicine, equipped with formidable tools and technology, finds room to appreciate these uncommon approaches, harmonizing tradition with innovation in an age-old dance. The echoes of those first mouldy remedies linger, a tribute to the persistent legacy of our forebearers, reminding us that the quest for healing is eternal and bound by fewer temporal barriers than we care to admit. So as we spin strange tales by firelight, we hold these archaic whispers close, an ode to the journey from mouldy bread to sterile breakthroughs, an origin rooted in the very fabric of human endeavour. In the medieval world, Amid the chaos and dread that followed battle wounds, a bizarre yet innovative remedy emerged from the depths of necessity: maggot therapy. Picture a time without antiseptics, where festering wounds were as common as the soldiers they maimed. The battlefield was a grim place, but it was also a space for desperate invention. Here, amidst blood-soaked fields, surgeons stumbled upon a gruesome ally in nature. Maggots, those squirming, reviled larvae, proved to be uncanny healers, consuming dead flesh with a hunger surgeons noted with a mix of disgust and admiration. What began as an unplanned observation evolved into a grim yet effective medical procedure, turning the initial horror into a strange hope for recovery. The origins of maggot therapy might invite skepticism, with medieval surgeons likely questioning how such repulsive creatures could play a role in healing. Yet, as the maggots feasted, the results were undeniable. Wounds purified, infections held at bay, and surprisingly swift recoveries recorded. This eerie success did not come from superstition, but from an early and accidental understanding of wound debridement. Even Pliny the Elder, ever curious about nature's quirks, referred to these maggots as nature's scalpel. What began as revulsion turned into a reluctant acceptance, as the odd effectiveness of larvae led medieval medicine to trust these tiny, natural practitioners. Maggots brought an unexpected precision to medieval healing that rudimentary tools could never achieve. Their secret lay in a singular diet preference: only necrotic flesh. Instead of harming living tissue, maggots deployed digestive enzymes that broke down dead cells, leaving cleaner, healthier tissue ready to heal. Moreover, these larvae inadvertently sterilised their environment, curbing infections that would otherwise claim limbs and lives. Unwittingly, medieval doctors observed an important trend. Patients treated with maggots often fared better than those left to the mercy of the elements. Moreover, maggots did more than remove rotting flesh. They spurred the body's own defences. Their presence provoked an immune response, boosting healing through increased tissue growth and blood supply. Though medieval practitioners lacked the advanced vocabulary of today's biomedicine, they could see the improved texture and healing of wounds treated with these creatures. Across cultures and through centuries, from Native American tribes to Napoleonic surgeons, this unwitting partnership between parasite and host left an indelible mark on medical history. On battlefields where chaos reigned, military medics found that such unconventional methods were their best bet for survival. With limited supplies and time, maggots became unlikely allies against the pervasive threat of gangrene. Amid the cries of the wounded, these living medical tools were deployed as a strategic measure, part of a broader, albeit desperate, medical protocol. Each maggot used reflected a pragmatic approach to war, where maintaining the fighting force was paramount, and lives were saved not out of pure compassion, but necessity. Maggot therapy, however, was not warmly received by all. Outside the harsh realities of the battlefield, civilians responded to this treatment with a mixture of apprehension and horror. In a society rich with superstition, maggots stirred tragic images of decay, more often associated with death than healing. Yet over time, their efficacy became impossible to ignore. The tales of recovered soldiers brought home with bodies healed by maggots gradually permeated civilian thoughts, challenging long-standing myths. As medieval medical thought evolved, so did the role of maggots. They transitioned from being a battlefield necessity to a considered part of surgical planning. Within cathedral schools and translated medical texts, notes on maggot usage hinted at growing acceptance, a nod to their odd but undeniable benefits. Despite the discomfort their presence incited, maggots found a niche, performing tasks too delicate for metal, and proving time and again that nature, despite its grim methods, had much to teach. The application of maggots in healing was not exclusive to Europe. Across the globe, other cultures quietly embraced the wisdom these larvae exemplified. Indigenous peoples and ancient cultures, though less vocally documented, employed maggots, finding balance in natural cycles of life and decay. This shared understanding of maggots as agents of purification highlighted a universal link: nature's solutions, guided by acute observation, transcending cultural walls and bridging medieval practices. Fast forward to modern times and maggot therapy has seen a fascinating renaissance, validated through scientific inquiry. What was once the gritty tool of desperate medieval healers has become a scientific marvel, sequestered within sterile medical environments far removed from the filthy floors of ancient clinics. Today, dressed in clinical protocols and scientific rigour, maggots continue to play a vital role, transforming medieval intrigue into a respectable element of contemporary medicine. Breaking past fears, aligned with scientific backing, modern use of maggots perseveres against psychological barriers, mirroring the same challenges faced by our ancestors. Society's instincts to avoid these creatures, imbued in superstition, require careful reframing. Drawing on history, patient testimonies, and scientific demonstrations, we bridge old discomforts with new understandings. The medieval usage of maggots serves as a testament to human ingenuity, our capacity to see potential in even the most reviling corners of our world. Their story, woven through centuries of human struggle against injury and decay, reminds us of the relentless pursuit of healing, an endeavour that binds us across the ages, with nature as the enigmatic but enduring ally. In the medieval era, a simple trio of ingredients, honey, lard and ash, served as cornerstones of healing. These unlikely heroes, drawn from both divine and domestic realms, were believed to be powerful enough to mend wounds and cure ailments. In ancient societies where the spiritual and practical often mingled, these elements possessed both utilitarian and mystical significance. Honey was more than a sweet treat. Derived from temple apiaries, it was seen as an offering from the gods, its golden nectar considered a sign of divine favour. This notion lent a sacred air to its application in wound care, where its natural antiseptic properties, with high sugar content and acidity, created a hostile environment for bacteria, staving off infection. Pig lard, on the other hand, connected the domestic with the divine. With its moisture-retentive qualities, the fat acted as a salve base, allowing honey to penetrate wounds more deeply, reducing scarring and promoting healing. Its use in medical applications was not just practical, but symbolic. In many ancient cultures, pigs held spiritual importance, often involved in religious ceremonies. The incorporation of lard into healing balms transformed these treatments into acts of divine intervention. Each application was both a medical treatment and a subtle prayer for the patient's recovery. Even ashes, humble and unassuming, played an essential role. Ashen remnants from the hearth, enriched with alkaline properties, were used in salves to create a physical barrier against infection, absorbing moisture and promoting clotting. This was especially useful for wet wounds, where keeping them dry prevented bacterial growth. The cultural significance of ash, as a symbol of rebirth and purity, drew parallels to healing's renewal of health. It was as if the fire's cleansing power lived on in every application of ash-based salves, purifying the wounded body while promising a cycle of recovery and renewal. The temples of Asclepius, dedicated to the Greek god of medicine and healing, epitomise the harmonious blend of ritual and treatment. Within these sacred spaces, honey, lard and ash were more than just ingredients. They were part of a sacred pharmacopoeia, enhancing the temple's rituals with their healing properties. Pilgrims sought solace through a combination of prayer and practical application, ensuring an experience that treated both body and spirit. Rituals stocked with offerings and entreaties to the divine created a holistic healing environment, where remedies aim to mend the physical ailments while also feeding the soul's yearning for divine intervention. Yet not all healing occurred within the grandeur of these hallowed sites. Homes and farms equally wielded the power of these salves. Among rural communities, honey, lard and ash were everyday staples, their availability making them a pragmatic choice for addressing common injuries and illnesses. This practicality didn't diminish their effectiveness. Rather, it showcased the ingenuity of common folk in leveraging nature's bounty. Households passed down the knowledge of preparing these balms, crafting remedies that rivaled those found within formal medical settings. This collective wisdom highlighted the role of women as primary healers, whose domestic skill in creating effective salves marked them as indispensable caregivers. The legacy of these ancient practices extends into modern medicine. Honey especially has experienced a renaissance, with scientific studies affirming its antibacterial and healing properties. Medical-grade honey finds regular use in contemporary wound care, bridging the gap between ancient intuition and modern validation. This seamless transition from antiquity's wisdom to today's clinical applications underscores the lasting impact of early medical practices. Though our understanding of medicine has grown, the foundational principles of holistic healing, attending to both the physical and emotional aspects of well-being, echo the integrated approach observed in antiquity. Modern research continues to explore the benefits of these ancient remedies. In skincare, lard's moisturising properties have made a surprising comeback, with contemporary products reincorporating animal fats for their soothing effects. This revival nods to ancient practices, where the harmony with natural rhythms guided health and wellness. Similarly, the alkaline benefits of ash are gaining attention for their detoxifying properties, illustrating how historical methods inform today's holistic treatments. The enduring connection to ancient remedies reveals a time-transcending legacy where the boundary between past and present blurs. This testament to nature's gift persists through the centuries, affirming the deep-rooted human quest to heal, rejuvenate, and connect with something greater than ourselves. Honey, lard, and ash, bound by both their tangible and symbolic purposes, continue to weave their tale in the tapestry of medical history, suggesting that sometimes the simplest elements hold the profoundest healing power. In the ancient world, the clinking of copper and bronze instruments formed a symphony in the operatic theatre of healing. These metals, more than mere substances, were hailed for their mystical essence and healing qualities. Surgeons across civilizations, from the Greeks to the Romans, wielded tools shaped from copper, entrusting their destinies to these reddish gold metals. Even without the microscopic insight available to us today, ancient practitioners noticed a unique outcome. Wounds treated with copper tools seemed to fend off the grim spectre of infection with more resilience than those tended with other materials. The peculiar observation that copper could ward off moral decay turned these instruments into talismans of health, bridging the chasm between ignorance and serendipitous insight. Malleable and enduring, copper allowed precise craftsmanship that sharpened blades into near-perfect extensions of the healer's hands. Quietly, these tools doubled as silent allies, cutting through flesh while unconsciously resisting the invisible armies of disease. In the hallowed chambers of healing, copper's hue was a stroke of luck that made infection's path a challenging maze to traverse. The acidic tang of vinegar, a now mundane kitchen staple, was a miracle liquid in this chapter of medical history. It became the soldier alongside copper in the noble battleground of surgery. Surgeons soaked their instruments in vinegar, following a simple yet profound observation. Infections seemed to wither under its influence. Though lacking an understanding of the tiny organisms causing these infections, they witnessed vinegar's uncanny ability to cleanse and hold the line against disease. By splashing wounds with vinegar, they believed its astringent bite would gird the body against a malignant sprawl of contagion. Mixed with herbs and spices, vinegar turned into salves and potions that were believed to bring comfort and sometimes genuine relief. Galen of Pergamon, the towering figure of ancient medicine, wielded copper with philosophical intent, proclaiming that a clean blade is a healing one. Long before the murmur of germ theory, Galen advocated for cleanliness, echoing in a primordial warning against letting blood and grime linger too long. His insistence on hygiene fused with the knowledge of the day to form holistic views that inspired free thinkers in medicine for centuries. In Galen's teachings, copper and vinegar became lodestones of protocol, their pragmatic use placing solid stones in the river of healing thought. The artistry didn't end with the substances alone. The tools, scalpels, lancets, forceps, were crafted as meticulous extensions of the healer's intent. Copper and bronze, shaped by practiced hands, became the symbols of human ingenuity, their gleaming surfaces echoing both the hope of relief and the weight of expectations. Throughout these ages, tools were more than instruments. They were artifacts straddling pragmatism and symbolism, reinforcing surgeons as not just healers but spiritual guides. Though microbiology was still centuries away, ancient practices eerily hinted at modern sterilisation. Instruments flashed and washed, boiled or touched briefly to an open flame. Rituals rooted in pragmatic wisdom. What seems intuitive now was the ancient healers' intuitive bid against unseen forces of decay and suffering. The simplistic yet profound actions spoke volumes of their need to wrestle with mortality's intangible spectre. Thus, myths of mysticism entwined with medicine in their timeless dance, highlighting human resilience in the struggle against oblivion. Copper bore a mystical allure, nestled in rituals that honoured the unknown. Enveloped in chants and sacred oils, practitioners transformed a simple surgical act into a cosmic event. Healing was a conjuring of faith and precision, and copper's touch was believed to bridge the earthly with the celestial. These rituals were profound, more so than the act of cutting flesh, as the metal was thought to whisk the patient in spirals of spiritual recovery. Vinegar, humble but revered, was a cornerstone of medicinal alchemy, transmuting with other elements to weave potions that blurred medicinal with culinary. These concoctions, mirroring local traditions and flora, offered solace and attempted cures born of tradition rather than empirical science. Yet in these rudimentary mixtures were kernels of wisdom, foundations for modern practices that remembered vinegar's sharp tang as much as its cleansing voice. From the Greeks' analytical observations to the Egyptians' mystical embraces, copper's application was as varied as the people who used it. This diversity underlines its utility and cultural imprint, revealing how one element could seamlessly adapt across the ages. Copper's subtle presence wove through these societies, connecting them in a web of shared experience and hierarchical belief. Today, modern science circles back to these ancient observations. Copper's antimicrobial properties validated, vinegar's benefits affirmed. Echoes of this ancient world resonate with the tunes of modern discovery. The tools and salves might have been simple then, but through their stories, we trace the fibres of not just techniques, but also the yearning of humanity, striving for mastery over mortal woes. The lineage is clear. Today's sterile rooms housing precise tools silently nod in respect to the practical wisdom of their crude yet sagacious forebears. Each era, it seems, harmonises with echoes resonating quietly from the tarnished past, reclaiming forgotten whispers as fresh hymns for tomorrow's exploration. In the dim glow of ancient medical practice, cautery stood as a terrifying beacon, a testament to both the ingenuity and desperation of early healers. From the time of ancient Egypt, when crimson hot irons were applied to stanch the flow of gushing blood, cautery became a last-ditch effort to save lives in the troubled halls of medicine. Imagine a healer grasping an iron rod, heated until it glowed like a coal, pressing it against skin and sinew. It was a procedure wrought from an eerily advanced understanding of the need to seal wounds and keep infection at bay, all without the knowledge of modern germ theory or sterilisation. Across cultures, the methods and tools varied, yet the drive remained consistent, a commitment to wrest life from the jaws of impending death. Hippocrates, the eminent Greek physician, recommended this searing technique for everything from nasal polyps to hemorrhoids. While on the other side of the world, Chinese texts documented the use of cautery on acupuncture points in pursuit of balanced qi. In the minds of these early practitioners, this was cutting-edge medicine, grounded not in cruelty, but in a fierce hope. Even Aristotle weighed in, praising its efficacy over less effective treatments for stubborn ailments. In such dire times, every slash and fever could spell doom, making the searing iron a beacon of salvation cloaked in flames. The implements of cautery were as varied as the cultures that wielded them, icons of heat and healing forged by skilled blacksmiths. Rods, spatulas, and tongs crafted from iron and bronze, each inscribed with protective symbols and invocations, formed a bridge between the physical and spiritual worlds. In the Middle East, wider surfaces of fire-wielding tools addressed more severe afflictions, while the Chinese Zhenju needles, warmed with moxa, delicately instilled vitality. The process itself was a marriage of practical know-how and psychological ritual, an attempt to impose order on the chaos of illness through both touch and transcendent intent. For those who endured it, cautery was a test of endurance, both physical and mental. The sensation of heated metal kissing living flesh is one few would wish to endure. The smell of burning hair and skin intertwining in plumes of acrid smoke. Without the anaesthetics we take for granted now, the experience was one of sheer agony, a sharp dance of shadows and screams. Some found solace in alcohol or local herbs, yet many found themselves clinging to whispered prayers, or the steady presence of a trusted voice, drawing strength from the surrounding shadows. In this grim ballet of fire, the difference between survival and demise lay in a patient's will and the practitioner's expertise. A poorly applied cautery could incite catastrophic burns or insidious infections, even death. Still, many chose the searing certainty of cautery over the slow decline of untreated wounds. Accounts from the past tell of countless lives saved, proving that amidst this fiery torment lay an unmatched potential for healing. These stories, echoing through time, paint a picture of survival rooted in audacity, a testament to both ancient methods and the enduring spirit of those who lived to share their scars. Those scars, stark and undeniable, lingered as potent reminders of battles won and the gritty resilience of medieval medicine. The healing process was uncertain, the charred skin cloaked in salves of honey and oil to stave off infection and soften the skin. Every scar was a testament to the intricate dance between mortal fragility and tenacity. Accompanying them were the indelible scents, the perfume of scorched flesh, imprinted upon memory, a visceral reminder to both healer and healed of their shared odyssey through agony and emerging life. Fire in medieval medicine assumed an almost divine aspect, its application shrouded in symbolism. Seen as both destroyer and purifier, fire embodied the struggle against the ethereal forces believed to infect the body. In this fiery forge, healers sought not just to mend the physical, but to confront metaphysical ills and purge the taint of illness as moral failing. Disease was often seen as a rupture of sanctity that had to be corrected with both physical and spiritual salves. The searing process was seen not merely as a painful necessity, but a grand narrative of rebirth, entwining individual and cosmic tales of trial and triumph. The annals of history are rich with tales of luminaries who wielded or withstood the fiery cure. Galen, whose teachings steered European medicine for centuries, praised its unrivaled ability to halt bleeding and cleanse infection. His writings, foundational yet controversial, informed generations. The Islamic scholar Avicenna, with his comprehensive canon of medicine, refined these techniques further, embedding them into medical orthodoxy. Such figures showed that beneath its lurid surface lay a profound commitment to science and salvation. Yet the practice also demanded bravery and faith from physicians and patients alike. To undergo cautery was to present oneself to the flames, a profound act of trust in the fire wielder's skill. Practitioners bore immense pressure, their hands cradling life and death. Every application was an assertion of humanity's indomitable drive to heal, a transcendence of earthly boundaries in pursuit of wellness. As healing sciences progressed, the practice of cautery evolved into today's precise laser and electrocautery techniques, blending ancient intuition with modern precision. While we no longer brandish iron rods, the echoes of medieval cautery remain, illuminating the timeless quest for health. Through its fiery trials, cautery exemplifies the resilience and ingenuity that have long driven humanity's engagement with healing arts, a bridge from past to present reflective of our shared journey through the ages. In the grand tapestry of ancient remedies, spiderwebs found an uncanny place as accidental medics on the battlefield. The Romans, those masters of practicality, discovered that these delicate nets of silk served more than aesthetic charm. They were nature's surprising allies, spun by tiny architects. Somewhere along the blood-stained lines of history, it was observed that these webs, when applied to open wounds, did more than shield the flesh. The soft strands absorbed blood and stopped its relentless flow. This wasn't mere chance, for spiderwebs rich in vitamin K play a pivotal role in clotting blood and fostering healing when such miracles were few and far between. Away from the clashing swords and marching legions, peacetime in Italy brought its own curiosities to the art of healing. Healers, with a touch of mysticism, harvested spider silk under the moon's gentle glow, swayed by the belief that lunar light lent these webs a unique power. It was as if the webs spun by such light carried whispers of forgotten magic. And yet beneath this romantic cover lay their undoubted practicality, a breathable layer against infection in an age when the threat of festering wounds loomed far larger than the initial injury. As Romans wandered through Europe's diverse landscapes, they found constancy and solace in these humble gifts of the natural world. The incredible ability of spiderwebs, interwoven with cultural narratives, became emblematic of a deeper connection between survival and belief. Romans perhaps saw more than silk in these arachnid weavings. They saw Arachne's blessings, anointed threads from divine looms. Soldiers, resting from the grim theatre of war, entrusted their flesh to this blend of myth and utility. Spider webs serving as bridges joining the mortal and the divine in a dance of survival and lore. To the discerning Roman soldier or healer, each elemental practice unfolded like a story, none quite like the one written with ox fat and roses. Unlikely components to the modern ear, they bore a deeper symbolism in their time. A concoction of crushed rose petals and ox fat, a recipe passed through generations, carried both medicinal promise and aromatic comfort. The ox fat, with its nurturing lipids, provided a balm that retained moisture, a vital quality to thwart crusts of scornful scabs. The roses, rich with their soothing perfume, channeled an additional botanical note of healing. The marriage of these elements wasn't mere serendipity, it was ancient wisdom wrapped in the belief of roses as divine protectors. Smell, strangely overlooked in the annals of the battlefield, held its own magic. In tents where blood and sweat told their own stories, the scent of rose and ox fat offered soldiers a sensory reprieve. This olfactory haven was not only a flicker of serenity amidst chaos, but a reminder of the soft embrace of home, a touch of humanity where humanity often struggled to linger. Long before aromatherapy had scholars intrigued, these scents served healing far beyond wounds, a fragrant barrier against decay and despair. Roman practices, however efficient, did not trade secrets through guarded whispers. They spread across empires and cultures, becoming shared knowledge among the Celts, Egyptians, and beyond. With each new encounter, the recipe was enriched, adapted, and evolved. As trade routes whispered tales of human experience, they carried these medical traditions, interweaving them into the broader human saga. The Egyptians might add honey to the mix, turning this once Roman concoction into a tapestry of shared healing wisdom. In applying these elemental salves, an art was practiced that required a refined touch. Healing wasn't merely a transaction of ointment to skin, it was an intimate exchange. The sticky silk of webs and the cool spread of fat spoke not only of necessity, but of trust. A gentle reminder of medicine practiced as a nurturing art rather than sterile science. Touch was key, binding healer to patient in an unspoken agreement to honour the body's capacity for renewal amidst disaster. But life was far from equitable in the medieval world. Nobles and soldiers, often favoured by circumstance, enjoyed access to spider webs and oxen's fat, while peasants crafted their own versions, relying on any available fats and herbs. Yet despite disparate resources, spider webs, spun by indiscriminate arachnids, were treasures accessible to all. This strange democracy in healing, where anyone might enlist a web to their plight, painted stark contrast between the rich tapestry of social hierarchies and nature's quiet availability. This mundanity heightened an ancient appreciation a profound composure that the earth, in its inexhaustible wisdom, offered remedies for the patient and observant. Healing thus reflected its timeless roots. In simple means lay elegant truths. Remedies weren't bound by the privilege of wealth, but offered freely in fields and shadows, waiting to be rediscovered. In tales told across fires and the shadowed walls of medieval homes, stories recounted the powers locked within webs and fats. While written words struggled to spread, oral stories conveyed healing knowledge to those eager to listen. These narratives, straddling the line between lore and reality, ensured timeless practices thrived, passed on like heirlooms of life itself, weaving webs of hope no less enduring than the threads of silk they celebrated. In the heart of ancient Greece, where mythology intertwined with daily life, emerged a healing tradition both unique and mystical. Asclepian healing temples. Named after Asclepius, the god of medicine, these sanctuaries were sought out for their peculiar approach, offering not just physical relief but a profound spiritual experience. Sprouting in serene locales, often near lush greenery and soothing hot springs, these temples provided an atmosphere ripe for tranquility and reflection, essential for what would be a journey into the world of dreams. Patients called incubants came seeking divine intervention through dreams. Before entering the temple's abaton, or sacred chamber, they performed purification rituals. They fasted, bathed, and offered incense to cradle themselves in purity and hope. Lying on stone beds amidst sacred, non-venomous snakes, incubants awaited divine encounters, hoping Asclepius would visit them in dreams providing guidance or cures. Such experiences, where dreams became the medium for healing, shaped both personal understanding and broader cultural beliefs about health in an age where empirical science was fledgling. Rituals were an intricate dance of preparation, cleansing the soul and body to invite divine communication. As they bathed in pools, the cool waters would wash away the day's grime and spiritual impurities alike, paving the way for a clean slate. Offerings were made. Sacrificial cockerels and figurative cakes, a humble plea for favour from the healing god. Beyond the physical rituals, mental preparation was key. Meditation and introspection were encouraged, fostering mental clarity, vital for interpreting the mystical visions that might appear. Inside the abaton, with the flicker of torchlight casting shadows across the cool, stone cleanai, the air was thick with incense and anticipation. All senses dedicated to opening subconscious doors for a sleep beyond mere rest. In this realm, where dreams could be whispered prophecies, temple priests assumed the role of interpreters. Trained in religious and herbal medicine, they unravelled the web of symbols presented during dreams, crafting personalised healing rituals and herbal remedies based on these nocturnal narratives. The priest's art of interpretation was both empathetic and perceptive, weaving the textures and hues of dream imagery into coherent insights, aligning spiritual and physical health. This holistic approach acknowledged that imbalances often lurked both within the spirit and the body, an acknowledgement that modern medicine too hesitates to dispute entirely. For today's observer, Asclepian sleep therapy might seem shrouded in superstition or placebo, yet the psychological comfort provided by such belief cannot be overstated. Despite skepticism, real physical healings attributed to temple experiences abound in historical records. The priests deployed herbal remedies like willow bark, known then unknowingly for its pain-alleviating salicin, an ancestor to modern aspirin. These practices reflect a sophisticated knowledge blend, demonstrating that healing was not solely divine inspiration, but also empirical wisdom passed through generations. Within this journey, the presence of snakes played an integral part, more than mere symbols, but active participants in the healing process. Non-venomous serpents, writhing through temple courtyards, embodied rebirth and renewal, shedding old skins as patients hoped to cast off illness or despair. Stories of snakes slithering across bodies as people dreamed were not uncommon, perceived as Asclepius's divine touch. These encounters offered symbolic reassurance that healing was both an earthly and divine undertaking. At the temple's entry, the symphony of scents, sights and sounds constructed an environment tuned for healing, a sensory tapestry engaging the faithful. Incense wafted through tall colonnades, the holy fragrance mingling with the quiet hum of temple life. Torches flickered against marble, shadows dancing in an ancient ritual. Stones cooled the touch, grounding the dreamers amidst ethereal ambience as gentle snake whispers echoed around them, a constant reminder of life's transformative cycles. As the practice spread from Greece across the Roman Empire, it absorbed local traditions, morphing into a cross-cultural healing network. Each temple site became a hub for exchanging medicinal beliefs, alongside Asclepian customs. The fusion was successful. In places like Pergamum, overlapping deities offered a layered approach to mystical medicine, uniting communities under a swelling banner of healing dreams. In today's medical paradigms, while snakes and divine dreams may stand aside, echoes of Asclepian practices still exist. Modern science delves into understanding sleep's restorative power, and the importance of integrating mental and physical healing persists. We might not find God's whispering cures in our slumber, but the legacy of those dream temples nudges us to explore the interconnected landscapes of health, where mind, body and spirit converge. Testimonies across ages, engraved in stelae, preserve tales of impossible recoveries. Blind seeing, lame walking, tales renewing faith in higher powers, binding science and belief into a powerful healing narrative. Such wondrous accounts compel us to reflect that throughout history, the act of healing has been a fusion of faith, story, and science, ushering echoes of Asclepian lore into our present pursuit for wellness. In the dim corridors of medieval medicine, trepanation stands out as a testament to human resilience and desperate ingenuity. Picture a world where the mind's maladies, madness, seizures, splitting headaches, were seen as manifestations of malevolent spirits trapped within the skull. The solution? A bold, if crude, method to provide these entities an escape route, drilling a hole into the cranium. Cultures from the mist-cloaked hills of Gaul to the sun-baked plains of Nubia embrace this practice. Remarkably, historical evidence suggests that many who underwent this grueling ordeal walked away, their skulls healing over time, a testament to both their endurance and the gritty competence of their healers. But why resort to such a dire procedure, despite its inherent risks? The answer lies at the juncture of faith and fear, where medicine and mysticism intertwined. In these times, the physical was seen as a direct extension of the spiritual. Illnesses were tangible repercussions of unseen forces at play. Trepanation was not merely a medical act, but a ritualized crossing of worlds. A notion that, by opening the skull, one might create a passage for harmful spirits to exit. It was a fusion of religious faith and rudimentary science, where the surgeon doubled as a spiritual guide. For such a procedure, the tools of the trade were necessarily specific. Early designs of the trepan or trefine simple circular blades akin more to a carpenter's tool than a surgeon's, evolved over centuries through trial and error. From bone saws to scraping instruments, each was carefully crafted to avoid harming the sensitive brain tissue beneath the skull. Some medieval practitioners favoured a gradual scraping method, eroding bone layer by layer. Others preferred a hand-cranked trepan for a clean circular cut. The goal was the same: provide relief while performing a delicate dance between safety and necessity. Across different lands, trepanation's practice adapted to local cultures. In Gaul, the Celts conducted this ceremony with ritualistic reverence, draped in druidic chants and offerings. Trepanation here was not just a surgical act, but a sacred rite. Meanwhile, in Nubia, amidst the golden sands and shadows of ancient pyramids, trepanation was approached with a balance of speed and spiritual piety. The harsh desert conditions demanded efficiency, yet the procedure retained its ritualistic essence, performed by healers revered near priestly figures. To undergo trepanation was to face both agony and the promise of salvation. Imagine lying on a rough wooden table, clutching an herbal concoction for courage while the healer approached. Without modern anaesthetics, patients met the procedure armed only with courage and faith in the healer. Each incision, each scrape resonated with the patient's deep-seated hope for liberation from their torment. Survival wasn't a guarantee, as infection and potential brain damage loomed ominously. Yet, the archaeological record of healed trepanation sites suggests many did survive. These skeletal remnants speak of resilience, with new bone growing around the surgical aperture. In a world dense with mysticism, where ailments of the mind were blamed on demonic forces, trepanation served as remedy and rebuke. It was deeply symbolic, a literal vent between spirit realms and the physical world. Healers had to navigate the corporeal and ethereal, acting as both surgeons and spiritual exorcists. Breaching the skull symbolised creating an opening for evil to escape, an act of mercy sewn into the cultural fabric of the time. Archaeologists have unearthed skulls with these circular marks across Europe, Africa, and beyond. These artefacts serve as historical constellations, hinting at a shared understanding, or misunderstanding, of its medical value. Some remains suggest trepanation was done with precision, not as a frantic measure, but a calculated attempt to cure. Through modern studies, researchers strive to unravel the environments and moments surrounding these ancient surgeries. Despite its grim reputation, trepanation enjoyed notable successes. Evidence of bone regrowth around the holes tells an astonishing story of survival, corroborated by ancient accounts of symptom relief. These successes secured trepanation's place in medical repertoires, demonstrating that sometimes drastic measures held genuine promise. Indeed, in many cases, this procedure transformed from an ominous death sentence into a beacon of healing, sustained by the hope of those brave enough to endure it. Modern perspectives often cloak trepanation in horror, or dismiss it as macabre superstition. Yet to do so ignores the reality of its context. A logical, albeit desperate, attempt to alleviate suffering in an era devoid of neurological understanding. Trepanation arises not from barbarity, but from a genuine quest to heal through the scant resources and knowledge of the time. It is a reminder that beneath history's bizarre solutions lies a human urge to conquer pain, as present now as ever. Today, echoing trepanation's basic principles, relieving pressure, reducing mystery, and rescuing lives, modern neurosurgery continues on its path, far more precise but still rooted in the ancient desire to heal. The story of trepanation, with its peril and promise, reflects humanity's historic dance with faith and medicine, offering a lens through which we can view both past mysteries and medical ambitions' enduring evolution. In the flickering shadows of medieval clinics, a story unfolds, one of bloodletting and leeches, where the pursuit of balance dictated the medical arts. Physicians wielded their small lancets with ritualistic precision, convinced that purging excess blood would restore the body's delicate humoral harmony. Elaborate charts, a blend of superstition and early science, guided incisions, promising health to those who believed. Yet many weakened instead, victims of this ancient dance with imbalance. The fascination with blood didn't arise from its efficacy alone. It danced with symbolism, a purging of sins and sickness in a world heavy with moral codes. Monasteries, home to both the infirm and medical manuscripts, wove spiritual purity into physical health, though too often this trust faltered. Scalpel and leech marked lives with sombre intervals, reminders of medieval life's ceaseless ebb and flow. Enter mercury, the shimmering liquid metal, enticing both for its mystique and its promise. It adorned remedies for everything from skin diseases to the menacing spectre of syphilis. The logic, though hazy, was that if mercury could purge impurities externally, perhaps internally, it could cleanse as well. This hope often turned deadly, masking tremors and madness beneath a cloak of medicinal mirage. Paracelsus, the alchemist physician, mused that the dose makes the poison, acknowledging mercury's dangerous allure. Its lingering presence in ancient medicine was not sheer ignorance, but necessity, the era's bold yet tragic gamble. The medieval mindset danced between the sacred and the surreal, where exotic concoctions with ground unicorn horn or pulverised mummies promised healing. Unicorn horn, often the narwhal's tusk in disguise, bore the weight of purity, believed potent enough to cleanse poisons. Even mummies reduced to dust were seen as vessels of life force, their myths carrying them from pharaohs to the pharmacies of the West. These macabre potions symbolise an effort to wield magic for mortal ailments. People of the time vibrated between what was tangible and what was enchantingly impossible, seeking miracles amidst their dark, cold realities. Histories speak of rulers with hidden troves of these exotic treasures, testimony to the belief that hope might yet be found in the strange and forbidden corners of medicine. Where ideas faltered, the doctrines of faith surged forth. Ceremonies, incantations and sacred circles were common, a testament to a world where science hadn't yet claimed dominion over all. From chanting sages to protective charms, medicine fused with the supernatural, societal norms flowing into healing rituals that soothed minds as much as they perplexed bodies. Sitting southwest of Error lay lessons with medieval healers harnessing herbs and roots more on intuition than understanding. Apothecary shelves groaned with petals and leaves, Rosium and Belladonna speaking through alkaloids of their arcane power. These plant remedies were valued, sometimes wisely, other times dangerously misplaced, but all shaped by a synergy of lore and budding science. The vivid legacy of iron tools speaks of the pragmatic brutality at medieval surgery's core. Bone saws and trepanning tools brought forth pain and primal healing, drilled skulls to release spirits, or save lives in bold gambits. Surprisingly, skulls unearthed centuries later revealed regrowth and resilience, proof that sometimes raw determination glossed over the grim horror of procedures. Even with all these elements in motion, dirt and dung drove odd curative theories, their presence in remedies alarming to modern sensibilities. Yet, the medieval rationale, rooted in a swarthy grasp on decay and its supposed remedial properties, dictated therapies as pungent as they were perplexing. Bezoar stones, revered in noble courts for their anti-poison law, occupied a space between mysticism and misplaced faith. Tales of their powers seduced many, all the more captivating because they appeared to bridge mundane vulnerability and magical invincibility. These legends endured, providing comfort amidst chaos, as tangible hope for the noble tasked with navigating dangerous poisoned waters. Beside stone or potion stood the often unheralded women of healing, those whose gardens grew not suspicion, but acceptance, if only for a time. In the margins they practiced, their hands steeped in both tincture and tradition. Paradoxically, they were revered as sages or hunted as witches, seamstresses of hope within patriarchal maelstroms. So, as we wrap up this tale of medieval medicine's strangest and most misguided attempts, consider the ancient doctors who forged onward through trial and error, missteps illuminating future discoveries. Each era illuminated a path, a marker of humanity's relentless march toward enlightenment. For in their flawed yet fervent explorations, they sketch the roadmap for modern medicine, patiently refined by centuries of progress. If you've enjoyed this exploration into the peculiar and often bewildering world of ancient medicine, be sure to like the video. Join our journey into the past by subscribing for more captivating stories from history's shadowed corridors. Until next time, keep wondering about the strange paths our ancestors walked in their quest to heal and understand.